Sharper Than a Serpent's Tooth. Written by the Hanged Man 317 and read by Purple Star. Chapter 29.
Fuel cells?
Check.
Clear ventilation?
Check.
Safety harness?
You didn't give me a safety harness.
Correct.
Hatsume, you didn't!
Start test!
I swear to fucking shit! Jim Sigma exploded in a burst of smoke and sound as Era was sent flying upwards at a sharp angle. She felt herself crash into the ceiling before slowing long enough to flip a switch on the jetpack, stabilizing just as she began to fall once more and finding herself hovering a few feet above the ground.
It seems like the initial propulsion is still too strong.
Hatsume scribbled something on her clipboard. Yeah, definitely needs to be more gradual. Era called down after clearing her lungs of smoke and dust. I don't think I would have been able to get it under control if there wasn't a roof above me.
How's the flight feel?
After stabilizing, it's alright. A little hot on my back. That was an understatement. Era could feel her skin starting to stink with surface burns. But it wasn't extreme enough to comment on. Hatsume hummed, marking down something else.
Okay, try landing.
You didn't tell me how to land.
Support gear should be streamlined and intuitive. Telling you would defeat the purpose.
Grumbling curses beneath her breath, Era gingerly adjusted the power output by slowly twisting a dial haphazardly strapped onto her wrist. The thruster sputtered, and she dropped a few feet with a yelp before stabilizing once again. I think this needs better input. I don't have a lot of control with this dial. Hatsume nodded.
That's what I thought. I'm working on a solution, but genius takes time. Soon it'll respond to user feedback automatically without needing manual adjustments.
Why couldn't I get that version? Era muttered.
What was that?
Nothing. Era plummeted the last few feet, barely managing to brace herself with the unwieldy added weight of the jetpack. Okay, anything else?
Yes, actually.
Hatsume hurriedly unbuckled the pack and almost reverently laid it back in its case.
I think I solved the MPS issue on your rifle design. Just a matter of auto-adjusting the chambers between modes. You ready to give it a try?
Era grinned in earnest, rolling out the strain in her shoulders from testing the jetpack. Oh, fuck yes. Language! Called Power Loader Motley from the corner, where he seemed to be making adjustments to his mech suit. I hope that gun isn't breaking the MPS cap I gave you. Of course not. Era unzipped the rifle from its case, while Hatsume busied herself with setting up the targets. Jim Sigma was designed with support course use exclusively in mind, set with workbenches and tools for repairs while testing gear, as well as a vast array of targets, ranging from cardboard cutouts to steel pillars. The firing range itself was set apart from the rest of the gym, though since the gear that they were testing was theoretically non-lethal, restrictions tended to be a little more lax than the ranges hero students used for actual weapons training.
Already here!
Shouted Hatsume as she flipped the last switch and the final target swung into place.
Let's test our baby out!
Please stop calling it that. Era walked up to the range and set her gun down on the table, examining the crude welding marks and harsh metal edges that she'd had to sand down. The hunk of soldered-together metal wasn't pretty by any means, but it had a stock and a barrel and a place to load magazines, so it got the job done well enough. Era checked the ammo and the gas canisters before locking everything into place, switching the safety off as she aimed downrange. Clear?
Clear.
Firing. Era lightly tapped the trigger, noting with a pleased grin the reduced recoil from the last time she tested it. The shots tended to drift a little to the right of where she was aiming, and she made a mental note to fix that later as she automatically adjusted her aim. What's the speed on that?
About 110 MPS. Enough to cause a nasty sting, and that's with the larger rounds.
Accuracy is still a little iffy. Era took another shot, this time aimed at a further target. A lot less drop-off, though.
There's just no pleasing you,
Hatsume said with a huff. Look, I'm just trying to get the best I can. Aren't you always on about innovation? Progress?
It's a gun! That's so boring! It doesn't even shoot electric bullets or anything!
Don't think that's a thing, muttered Era, swiping her finger across a switch and hearing a telltale click as something within the gun shifted. Switching firing modes? Do I still need to wait for the adjustments?
Nope, and you can thank my patented Hatsume genius for that. It took a bit of tinkering.
Great. Firing. Paint splattered across the targets in bright yellows and oranges. Hera grinned, this time showing teeth. Oh, now this is fun. Good call on the color.
Easy to see from the stands,
agreed Hatsume.
Ooh, wait, try the green ones. I've been dying to see those in action.
Nodding, Era flipped the safety back on and switched out the basic yellow and orange paintballs for clear plastic magazines of the acrid green ones, securing it into place before bringing the rifle to her shoulder once more. Hey, power loader, I'm going to destroy a couple of your targets.
You don't need to announce it every time.
Era shrugged. Just giving you fair warning. Okay, firing. Bright, almost neon green, splattered across a couple of the targets, and Era held her breath, as for a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. She released it with a smile when the paint began to bubble, eating sizzling holes to the cardboard until it landed in smoking bits on the ground.
Seems like the potency decreases over time. But that's the most volatile substance some people will allow me to work with.
Hatsume shot her teacher a pout, getting a wary sigh in return.
No melting your opponents.
It's not melting, it's dissolving.
See, you say that like it's an argument in your favor, and yet...
Era ignored their bickering, instead taking out a few more targets with quick taps of the trigger, familiarizing herself with the feel of the strange facsimile of a gun in her hands. It wasn't exactly the same. It didn't have the power she was used to, the weight and concentrated threat of a real, lethal weapon. But she supposed it was satisfying enough. Flipping off the safety and setting the rifle down carefully, Era checked the time with a soft curse. I have to leave soon, but there were a couple other things I wanted to test out. Do you know how to handle this thing?
Obviously, Hatsume huffed. What kind of inventor doesn't know how to operate her own inventions?
I mean, it's our invention. I did most of the work, Era muttered with no real bite, pressing the rifle into Hatsume's outstretched hands. I need to know how much damage this causes. Think you can hit me?
I'm not as good an aim as you,
she admitted, a glint in her eyes.
But this thing has a pretty high fire rate, so I'm sure I'll hit you a couple times at least.
Wait! Hold on! Excuse me!
Finally, they had said something troubling enough to cause Power Loader to lift his head.
Are you requesting that Hatsume shoot you?
Yes?
So you're going to stand in the range, next to the targets.
Is there a problem? No one else is here, so it's not like I'm going to get hit by another weapon. And I mean, I'm going to be shooting people with this thing eventually.
No, just clarifying.
Powerloader sighed, pulling on a welding mask.
Please wear safety goggles at least. Next time I'm bringing wafers,
he muttered beneath his breath, getting back to work on his own project. Era rolled her eyes, but did accept the goggles that Hatsume practically shoved into her hands. Although, strictly speaking, she didn't actually need them. Still, regenerating eyes was a huge fucking pain in the ass, and while she was confident in her own ability to avoid hitting people in the face, Hatsume was a completely different story. Picking her way around a few half-melted targets, Era set herself up about 50 meters away. Can you hit me from here?
You're kinda far. Hold on a second.
A few sharp cracks rang through the stillness of Gym Sigma as Hatsume fired several shots in the general vicinity of where Era was standing. She sighed, glancing down when the pellet grazed her. Oh, that one was close.
Shut up! That was just a warm-up,
called Hatsume, before hunkering down once more, no doubt holding down the trigger with the amount of bullets whizzing by. Era felt a few more nick her in the arms and legs, until finally a series of 10 nailed her right in the torso. Good hit, she called, glancing down to assess the damage. UA gym clothes were tough. At this range, there was no visible damage. She could feel a bit of a sting, and when she peeked beneath her clothes, she could find rapidly healing welts as evidence of the shots. Era wouldn't exactly call it painful. Really more of a mild distraction, like a fly buzzing around her head. She stepped forward, closing the distance to 40 meters.
Wait, how did it feel?
Hatsume was already loading the gun up with another magazine, unloading a hailstorm of bullets. Era just shrugged. Kind of stung, I guess. Let's try again.
How close are you going to get?
With anyone else, Era might have expected that question to be accompanied by a healthy dose of concern. With Hatsume, however, there was only gleeful scientific curiosity. It was both worrying and refreshing. As close as I'm likely to shoot someone in the sports festival. 5 meters, maybe. Maybe less?
I'm not carrying you to recovery, girl,
shouted Powerloader, though both students ignored him.
Okay.
Hatsume aimed down the sights once more.
Ready?
Ready. They proceeded much in the same fashion. Although as Era got closer, she noticed the pain becoming more pronounced. The pellets digging red gouges through her skin before the wounds healed beneath her clothes. Interestingly enough, her gym uniform remained intact, though it seemed the airsoft pellets didn't need to pierce the fabric in order to embed themselves into her flesh. They'd brought it down to 10 meters when the door to the gym burst open. Era's attention snapped towards the sudden noise, only to see the angry red eyes of Eraserhead blazing back at her, Shinsou lazily trailing behind. She checked the clock. Shit. A simmering dread bubbled in her chest, dampened only by the knowledge that he hadn't killed her yet, and was unlikely to attempt it for one bout of tardiness. Logic, unfortunately, wasn't the most effective at staving off her insistent spiraling thoughts. I'm so sorry, Aizawa-sensei. I completely lost track of... Era's hurried apology was cut short as Hatsume chose that moment to pelt her with another round of pellets, the sharp cracks reverberating off the high ceilings. Hissing more out of surprise than anything else, Era shot a glare towards Hatsume. A little warning next time? She barely managed not to snarl, hands brushing idly across a few sharp pinpricks of pain at her stomach. To her credit, Hatsume did look appropriately contrite.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were distracted.
Why? Ground out Aizawa, and Oh, yes. Era was dealing with an actively unfolding crisis. She'd almost forgotten.
Are you standing in a shooting range?
Era stared at him. This was not what she was prepared to defend herself for.
Why aren't you? I'm sorry.
Apology accepted?
Holy shit,
muttered Shinsou, peeking around their teacher.
When you said testing, I thought you meant, like, using the gear yourself.
I mean, I did. Era crossed her arms, feeling the movement tug at a few still healing scrapes. This isn't for Hatsume. This is, my gear. She could have sworn she saw Aizawa's eye twitch.
Your gear.
Yeah, you know, for the sports festival.
That gun is for the sports festival.
I already said that, yes.
Who allowed you to have a gun?
Power Loader Sensei processed the registration, if that's what you're asking.
Oh, great. Throw me under the bus,
muttered Power Loader, pushing back his welding mask and wiping some of the sweat from his brow. Era glanced towards Hatsume, who shrugged, then back at Aizawa. I don't understand. Is there a problem?
No, there's...
Aizawa made a strangled noise, pinching at the bridge of his nose.
There's no problem. This is just an unexpected development.
Students are allowed to register support gear, said Era stiffly, still unsure why he was so worked up about this, and growing more and more fearful of that uncertainty. I'm just trying to give myself the proper tools, sir. Aizawa looked up sharply, eyes narrowing for a moment, before his expression stilled to something more placid.
I'm not angry with you.
A twitch at Era's fingers. Was she so easily read? Was there a tell she wasn't aware of, infesting her with its weakness? You seem a little agitated, is all.
Can you explain to me why you thought it would be a good idea to test this weapon on yourself?
Era huffed, scratching at the scab on her arm and feeling blood well up beneath her fingernails. How else am I supposed to know how my enemies will react to getting shot?
Of course,
said Aizawa dryly, turning his gaze on Power Loader.
And this was permitted because...
Look, apparently this is your student, so it's your problem. I already have my hands full with that walking catastrophe.
Power Loader jabbed his finger at a beaming Hatsume.
So I'm kind of at my limit at the moment. No one's in danger, far as I can tell. Honestly, this is the safest they've been all day.
That is not reassuring.
I don't know what you want to hear from me. It's just an airsoft rifle.
That's not the point,
hissed Aizawa, voice lowering to a tone Era could just barely hear.
Did you seriously authorize her to have a gun? Her?
I mean, she's a good aim, said Power Loader, crossing his arms. I made sure she knows how to use it, and she does.
He's right, called Hatsume helpfully. Era here's the best shot in all of Japan.
That isn't true. Era sighed, taking another few long strides forward. Ready for 5 meters?
Suzuki, you're late.
Well, if I'm already late. Hatsume aimed down the sights.
Ready. Are you?
Yeah, all clear.
Suzuki, I swear!
Firing!
Maybe Shinsou had been right about giving the man a heart attack. She could imagine that she heard his jaw clench, although that must have been impossible under the sharp rat-tat-tat of the rifle. Era looked down to find a few of the pellets had actually managed to rip through her clothes. Ouch. She shouldn't shoot anyone at this range, which was acceptable. If they were this close to her, she was probably better off with melee combat anyway. Or at the very least, her pistol. Okay, I think that's all I needed. Thanks, Hatsume.
Oh no, thank you. Should we test the paintballs next, or...
Suzuki!
I have to go, sorry, said Era hastily. Would you mind putting it away for me? Hatsume waved her away.
Yeah. Go do your little hero thing.
Thanks. Era made her way towards Aizawa and Shinsou, fixing an apologetic smile to her face. I apologize. I think the time got away from me.
It's fine.
Aizawa sighed, turning to leave the building and motioning for both of them to follow.
Are you actually planning on using that in the festival?
Yeah. It works, and it'll give me range. I've already registered the rifle. A pistol, a few throwing knives, a stun baton. Although I'm not sure if I'm gonna make that work before the festival, because it keeps...
Wait, did you say throwing knives?
Aizawa looked back at her incredulously.
Power loader allowed that?
Well, first he said he wouldn't. Then he said he'd allow them if they were blunted, and then he allowed me to have both blunted and sharp ones as long as I don't use the sharpened ones on other students.
And you made those yourself?
Era shrugged. Some of them. I still have a few more to make, and the balance is a little wonky, but it isn't actually that hard.
Where did you learn how to do something like that?
Heat pressed heavy against her face, burning fingers where she'd sacrificed caution for speed because she needed to get this done before Vulcan returned to see her handiwork. Vulcan had always been especially cruel. Even then, Era could never seem to please him. The internet, she answered with another shrug. Crazy what you can learn online. She swore she caught Aizawa's eye twitch.
Of course. Crazy.
So he didn't believe her then. That was fine, as long as he kept his distance, didn't press the falsehoods until they splintered. Then she could handle his doubt. And if he did, well, maybe it wouldn't come to that. The longer he trained her, the less likely she felt that he wouldn't cover anything. Although whether that was wishful thinking or a truthful assessment of the situation, she couldn't know. It made sense that training together would reduce his suspicion after the initial spike, would separate her into her own person in his mind. The girl from general studies who's training to be a hero, that's a character, and once established, it would be difficult to see her as anything else. As long as he didn't push, she was still safe. But if he did... Era hoped against her better judgment that he wouldn't. That he would, counter to everything she knew about the man and heroes in general, keep his nose out of her business and be, if not content, then at the very least, stayed by her non-answers. If he did, then she would run. There would be no other choice. End of chapter 29.